I started this channel over 7 years ago, and one of the main things that I was known for in the community was Minecraft texture packs. Now, texture packs have come a very long way since I first started playing. We had 32, 64, 128, 256, and even 512x packs. However, more recently, 16x packs have taken over and definitely become the most popular resolution. But why? The default in-game texture pack is actually 16 by 16 resolution, and it's thought that 16x packs will give you the best performance compared to higher resolution packs. Less pixels equals less lag, right? Well, in this video, we're going to be finding out if that's true. Now, if I go ahead and go on my gaming PC and load up two texture packs, on the left, we have got a 16x pack, and on the right, we have got a 256x pack. Now, running around in the same world, in the same way, with the same items in my hands, as you can see, there is a big difference in FPS. The 16x pack gets me about 900, 1000 FPS, maybe just under that, whereas the 256x pack gets me about 400 to 500 FPS. So yeah, it's pretty much double the performance with a 16x texture pack. However, later on in the video, we'll find that there's less of a difference than you might think. Either way, if you've got a gaming PC and you want to use a 256x pack, sacrificing 400 FPS, it's not going to make much difference because you've got a good computer, you play over 60 FPS or over 144, it feels smooth, it doesn't feel laggy, you can use pretty much whatever texture pack you want. That said, however, not many people are lucky enough to have a gaming PC like me, and they're more likely to have something like this. This is my low-end laptop from 2009. It's got Intel Core i3 3300M processor, 8GB of RAM, and integrated graphics. This is a very slow laptop, so let's see what FPS is like on this. Alright guys, so here we are on the low-end laptop. Now first of all, we're going to be using the default texture pack. So this is the standard texture pack that comes with Minecraft. We have optimized this laptop. I actually did that in my last video. If you want to go ahead and check out that video, I'll leave it on the top right. But yeah, the FPS we're getting is a pretty consistent 50 FPS, I'd say. I mean, this laptop is super old and super slow. So yeah, perfectly playable. Now, let's see how this compares to a regular 16x pack that you might download off YouTube or my website, PvPRP. Alright, so I've just changed my texture pack over to one of mine actually. It's called Astral 16X. Probably one of my best texture packs. Most of it is pretty much custom made, the blocks, items, and the difference in FPS is pretty marginal, honestly, compared to default. As you can see here, we're still getting about 50 FPS, maybe 60 at times. And yeah, it just allows you to have a lot nicer texture pack on, which looks different to default and is just better in every way. I do like Astral 16X. It's a very good pack. You should go check it out. Link in the description. All right, let's see how this compares to a 32x pack. This will be interesting. The one I've chosen is Nebula 32x by Lushi. I picked this one because it's got quite a lot of 32x blocks and 32x items, which would be quite interesting to see how it affects our FPS. And as you can see, our FPS has actually gone up using a high resolution texture pack. What? I don't think I've seen my FPS drop below 50, honestly, with this. Wow, our FPS has actually improved a lot using this texture pack. All right, so I've just loaded up a 64 by 64 texture pack here on this laptop. And as you can see, our FPS is still above 60 FPS and it's still a playable frame rate in general. That is insane. How is a higher resolution texture pack actually better than default in this case? What? So the pack that I've chosen is the Huawei 64X PvP pack. So yeah, it is pretty much 64X across the board, and our FPS is actually good with it. Pretty much exactly the same as Nebula 32X, but a little bit better than 16x, which is quite interesting. All right, guys, so we have now loaded up a 128x texture pack. It hasn't actually decreased our FPS at all. In fact, it feels pretty much the same as the Huawei pack. Now, the pack I've decided to go for is the Cold V2 pack by iSparkton, and I picked this one because it's got very high resolution blocks, high resolution items. I mean, look at the detail on some of this stuff. And I don't actually think texture packs are making a big difference to our FPS on this computer, which I'm super surprised about. Let me know in the comments down below if you're surprised by these results as well. Alright guys, so I'm just loading up a 256x texture pack. Now that took a very long time to load up, and I was actually worried there that my game was going to crash. So yeah, the one I've decided to go for is the Stardust V2, again by Lushi. I mean, just look at the detail on this sword. Wow. And our FPS, again, is over 60 FPS on this laptop. How is that even possible? We can actually play with a 256 56x pack on this low-end laptop. So it's a little bit lower than 64x, but still perfectly playable, above 60 FPS. Right, let's go to the final one. 512 by 512 resolution. Alright, so if this next one doesn't affect our FPS at all, I'm done, honestly. And it looks like our game is starting to crash. Not responding. Come on, you can do it. Alright, so I've just loaded up a 512x tech... Oh, wait, what? This is just default. What's happened? Looks like Sphax just refuses to load. Wow, I never thought I'd see the day. A 512x texture pack is now running on my low-end laptop. We've got a 512x sword and all of these items all in the highest resolution we can possibly get on this laptop. So the pack that I've decided to go for is called Sangria Green by Invisign. It looks super nice. We're going to about 60 FPS, 50 to 60. And yeah, this is just really confusing, honestly. How can 512x items, a 512x texture pack, still perform good on this laptop? I'm starting to think that these PvP style packs are a lot better with FPS because they use obviously lower resolution blocks and pretty much every trick in the book to try and get them to run well on low-end PCs. That's what I'm starting to think anyway. I think original high resolution packs like Sphax just straight up refuse to load on this laptop, but if you can get a PvP pack at high resolution, I don't really think it affects your FPS that much, or that's what I'm finding with this low-end laptop anyway. So as you can see, that was the result I was not expecting whatsoever. How can a 512x texture pack pretty much have the same FPS as a 1632 or even 64x pack? It wasn't making sense. Now, it was very clear that this laptop had been optimized by me in my last video, but what happens if we bump the video settings up and see how that affects things? This is where we might see some results. So one thing a lot of these PvP packs have in common is they all have a custom sky. Now, I haven't had mine turned on because obviously I'm on the lowest video settings possible, but let's try and throw on a custom sky, turn up our video settings slightly and see what FPS we get then. Alright, so our custom sky has been turned on and I must admit this one looks pretty cool, but still we're getting about 60 FPS. Let's put our graphics on fancy, let's put our smooth lighting on minimum. Here we go, and our FPS has instantly gone down. It's pretty much halved our FPS just doing that. As you can see, we're on about 23 FPS, 24. Now, since we are on a 512x pack with custom sky, let's compare that to Astral, the 16x pack I used at the start of the video, and see if the FPS is any different. Alright, so here is Astral 16x, same video settings as before, custom sky enabled, and as you can see, we are now experiencing better FPS with a lower resolution texture pack. So before we were getting about 23 FPS, now we're getting about 30. So yeah, you can kind of decide whether you want to play with a 16x pack with good video settings or a high resolution pack with lower video settings. And here is what's even more interesting. So I've just gone and put on a 64x pack here. This is probably the most consistent out of the bunch. This has got 64x blocks, 64x items. We're running on the same video settings as before with a custom sky this time, and still 30 FPS, which is pretty much the same as what I got with Astral. I just don't get it. In fact, we even got 50 FPS there. So yeah, it is still quite choppy, and I'm sure you'll be able to see on the video, but otherwise it's pretty much the same as Astral. There isn't a lot of difference in it whatsoever. How about we take it a step further, and how about we go with an even lower resolution than 16x? So here we are using an 8x8x texture pack in Minecraft. So pretty much everything's been downscaled. As you can see, this sword here is really blocky and quite ugly. These blocks here, as you can see, these have been downscaled as well to 8x8x. And as for our performance, I hate to say it, but it hasn't changed whatsoever. We're still getting about 30 FPS here, and it seems to be pretty much the exact same as the 64x pack and the 32x pack and the 256x pack and the 512x pack. Yeah, this is a very interesting video. So let's go ahead and put it back on massive performance mode. 90 FPS, that's not too bad whatsoever. And yeah, this feels super smooth. This is buttery smooth. And yeah, maybe an 8x pack is the way to go. But let's compare that to default. Right, so here we are using the default texture pack, and honestly, I can't really tell much difference. I think the 4x pack managed to score us a little bit more FPS, but it's hard to tell, honestly. It both feels exactly the same. This doesn't make sense. Right, let's use a 4x texture pack. Let's half the pixels even more. All right, here we are with a 4x4x texture pack loaded on our game, and this looks super ugly. It actually gives me a headache. You'd only use one of these if you're really desperate for FPS. there isn't actually much performance difference between this and the default texture pack on this laptop. Right, so we have finally got a 1x1x texture pack. Thank you to Are You Mad LOL for this texture pack. This genuinely doesn't feel like I'm playing Minecraft anymore. This feels like I'm playing like a knockoff game. All the items are 1x1x, so it's very difficult to tell what you've actually got in your hands. And as you can see, our FPS, it's I don't know. To be honest, it feels exactly like the default texture pack performance-wise. What even is this? So, it's all well and good flying around a single-player world and comparing the FPS, but in actual PvP gameplay, does it make a difference? I decided to try and find out. So I hopped on My Man Club and I did some 1v1s. And as you can see here, playing with a 1x1x texture pack got me about 70 to 80 FPS. Now, bear in mind, a lot of the 1v1 arenas on My Man Club are super flat worlds anyway, so they are going to be good for FPS, but it's interesting to see how different resolution items fare in PvP situations. Here's me doing a 1v1 with a 512x texture pack on my low-end laptop. And aside from the player that I'm fighting being a lot better at PvP, the FPS, there wasn't actually much in it. I was still getting over 60 FPS, which is perfectly playable. And to be honest, I didn't notice a difference gameplay-wise with the 512x pack compared to a 1x texture pack in terms of FPS. This got me really wound up. Why isn't the FPS changing? So I decided to use the most consistent pack that I've got, and it's the Huawei 64X pack. And as you can see here, I'm still getting about 60 FPS, which is perfectly playable on a laptop like this. I can fight people pretty easily. However, I forgot to bring a water bucket, and I ultimately died in this 1v1. I then decided to use my 16X texture pack, Astral. Now this has a lot of custom 16X blocks in it, 16X items and stuff like that. But still, the FPS, there isn't much difference gameplay-wise, and I could still play really well. So if you compare the performance of me using Astral 16X in this 1v1 here, look at the FPS, examine it, see my amazing gameplay, and then we compare that to the first 1v1 that we did with a 1x texture pack, there isn't much difference in FPS whatsoever. I think we're getting very close to our conclusion of this video, but there was one thing that I wanted to try before then, and that was Hypixel. The Hypixel lobby and game modes itself are a massive FPS killer. I wouldn't be surprised if my low-end laptop gets about 1 FPS when I'm loading in on Hypixel, and I think particles is going to be a key point here. Alright, so here we are on Hypixel. I've just joined the duels lobby, and our FPS has gone down quite a lot. Before we were getting about 80, 60, 80 FPS. Now we're on 18. But yeah, this is a lobby. You know, you don't really spend a lot of time in here. So let's try some classic duels. All right, so here we are in a duels here, and straight away my FPS has gone right back up to 80 FPS. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of particles this time. I think this guy's got a trail or something. Every time he shoots at his rod, there's particles. But still, it's not really affecting our FPS that much. In fact, we're kind of destroying this guy on a low-end laptop. Right, we're stepping things up a notch, and we're using the Huawei 64X pack. Now my FPS is, yeah, it's lower than Astral 16X, but it's still perfectly playable. We're still getting above 60 FPS. That gave me a little bit of a lag spike, but we still won. So yeah, I mean 70 FPS, 80 FPS, there is a little bit of a difference, but still, use the texture pack you want, guys, because there isn't much difference in it. All right, what about a 256X pack now in Hypixel duels? This is stepping things up a notch. But yeah, now we've got our 256 sword, armor, rod, all that good stuff. But still, over 60 FPS. I'm pretty happy with that. Right, let's use the Big Daddy, the 512X texture pack. Look at how high resolution this armor is. Still, FPS-wise, 60 FPS, maybe just a bit under. Okay, it's getting a little bit choppier now. We're dropping down to about 40 FPS on average. So yeah, that was quite difficult there. Getting a couple of lag spikes. Okay, I think we may have found the match here. I think 512X might just be too much for this laptop. I mean, don't get me wrong, it runs it. We're playing quite well now, but as soon as we get into a PvP situation, yeah, as you can see, it drops down quite a bit. And it's also worth mentioning that the blocks in this are 16X, which is probably really helping our FPS here. If I had 512X blocks, I don't even know what would happen on this laptop. It'd probably explode. And yeah, it's benefiting me quite a lot here. Now, as you can see, our FPS has gone up, and it feels a lot smoother now when I'm playing. This guy's actually got diamond particles. GG. So yeah, there is a difference between this and a 512 and a 256X pack. We're looking at about 80 FPS to 90 FPS compared to say 60 or 40 with a 512X in a PvP situation. Now I don't think I'll push this laptop any further than it needs to be, but let's just try and play some Skywars with this texture pack. We're using the 128X texture pack from iSparkton, and I must admit it's a really nice texture pack. It's really nice to play with. This is such a weird map. I've never played this map before on Hypixel. But yeah, Skywars, obviously it's going to be quite easy and good on the FPS. But yeah, I could probably play Skywars like this, and with a 128X texture pack as well, it's really playable. I'm quite surprised by this. So I think the results of this video have been incredibly interesting. I did not think I'd be able to, 1, run a 512X texture pack on a 2009 laptop, but 2, to actually be able to be playing on Hypixel and doing 1v1s and duels on this laptop and doing pretty well with decent FPS. So, to answer the question, do texture packs affect FPS? To be honest, I think they do, but it's very slightly marginal. I mean, as we saw there, the 512X texture pack I dropped to about 40 FPS in a PvP situation compared to say like 60 to 80 FPS with any other texture pack. So yeah, if you're not going for like the maximum possible texture pack you can run on your computer, if you're sensible and you say want to use a 64 or a 32X texture pack from time to time, I think you can do that on a low-end laptop or pretty much any computer. Until anything challenges my conclusion, I'd say that's a pretty fair one. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys found it useful and are pretty surprised by the results, just like I am. If you want to check out my last video where I optimized my laptop and probably allowed myself to get this much performance out of it, then click here and I'll see you guys there.